students. Today we are going to discuss about the other two important functions of the ecosystem. If you remember, in the last class we had discussed about the introduction about ecosystem. That is, we discussed about the definition of ecosystem. We spoke about what are the components of ecosystem, what is the physical structure of an ecosystem, and the functions of the ecosystem. If you recall, the functions of the ecosystem, they were productivity, decomposition, nutrient cycling, and energy flow, of which the first one, that is productivity, we have already discussed. So let's move on today and discuss the remaining functions of the ecosystem. So the next function of the ecosystem now we're going to talk about is decomposition. Now this term is not a new term to you. You are very much familiar with what is decomposition. Now it's a very important process in the ecosystem. So let us first understand the definition of decomposition. Decomposition is a physical and chemical breakdown of complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients. So the organic substances is being broken down into inorganic nutrients along with carbon dioxide and water. Now, what is this organic matter also referred to as? This organic matter is also referred to as the detritus. Now, what is this organic matter or detritus? Any dead plant parts, dead plant remains like leaves, barks, flowers, or dead animals or the remains of animals, including their fecal matter, they all constitute the detritus, which is the raw material for decomposition. Now, why is this function or this process so very important to the ecosystem? The first one is decomposition causes decrease in detrital mass. Now, as you all know, detritus is nothing but the dead plants and animals. So just imagine if there was not a process like decomposition happening in the ecosystem, what will you see around? You will be finding every day so many thousands and millions of plants and animals are dying or their parts are falling onto the ground. If they don't undergo this decomposition, what will happen is slowly and gradually they will pile up on the earth, emanating bad smell and utterly causing a lot of chaos in the ecosystem. Okay, and it may also become a breeding ground for so many disease causing organisms. So one of the important significance of decomposition is that it cleans up the ecosystem from the detritus or the organic matter. Second thing is, without this process, the nutrients present in the plants and animals would remain locked in their tissues and have no way of returning back to the soil after they die. Now we know that when plants and animals, basically they are made up of organic matter, of amino acids, proteins, DNA, RNA, we call them as nucleic acids, fats, lipids. So this is what makes up the living organisms. So when they die, they do not require this anymore. So it is going to be a waste in their tissues. So this has to be unlocked, this has to be released. That is the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, the nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, whatever is locked in these organic matter should be released into the soil. Now for what purpose into the soil? So that it can enrich the soil, and from the soil these nutrients can go back again to the plant to do a very important process yet again. What is that process which we already discussed? That is productivity. Okay, and another important significance of decomposition is it also, if it is not happening, there will be depletion of atmospheric carbon dioxide. You know that decomposition releases carbon dioxide, and if there is no decomposition taking place, the atmospheric carbon dioxide will be depleted, or the carbon cycle in nature would be imbalanced. So this is very important. And you know what is the significance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? It has to be used by plants in the process of photosynthesis. Okay, again in order to prepare into organic matter. Okay, so that is what is the significance of decomposition. Now let's talk about the organisms which are involved in decomposition. Now we'll classify these organisms into two types. One is detritivores and others are decomposers. So let us first talk about detritivores. What are detritivores? Now you can see the pictures of some detritivores on the screen. that is a millipede, earthworm, beetle, likewise snails, slugs, okay, woodlouse, all these are referred to as detritivores. And what are they doing? These are actually animals which ingest or eat the detritus. So when they eat the detritus, what are they doing is, they help in, so this detritus will pass through the alimentary canal. And when it passes through the alimentary canal, this organic matter or the detritus will be utilized by them to gain energy. At the same time, some of the detritus matter would be released out in the form of, for example, earthworms, when we say they release it as worm castings. Okay, they're excreta. Now, this is what is referred to as fragmentation. So by doing this, they are increasing the surface area of the detritus, and moreover, they also add certain growth substances which help in the growth of other microbes which help in decomposition. And by doing so, they are helping in disposing the dead bodies. So that is what a detritivore is. They feed on the detritus. By feeding on the detritus, they get energy, and the remaining they will be releasing out to the body. Okay, and so this is how they are helping in fragmentation of the detritus so that it can be easily acted upon by the decomposers. And by doing so, they are helping in disposing the dead body and trying to keep the environment clean. Then the next set of organisms which are also involved in decomposition is or are decomposers. Now, decomposers are mainly microorganisms. They are not like detritivores. They don't ingest the detritus. Instead, they will be pouring out. They will cause the degradation or catabolism of the detritus by pouring out digestive enzymes over it, thereby degrading or breaking down the organic matter into simple inorganic materials. Okay, subsequently some of which will be absorbed by them for getting energy. Okay, so you have these decomposers, fungi, bacteria, some protists. They also act as decomposers. One important function is they are involved in catabolism, as well as they also act as mineralizers by releasing elements locked in the organic matter. So this is what, so we have spoken about two categories of organisms which are involved in decomposition, detritivores and decomposers. Now let us talk about the steps in decomposition. What are the steps in decomposition? Decomposition involves the following steps. They are fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification and mineralization. So let us talk about each one of them separately. Of these 5 steps, we have already discussed about fragmentation and catabolism. If you remember, I have told you who is going to do the fragmentation. Fragmentation is done by the detritivores. What is the meaning of fragmentation? Fragmentation meaning is to break the detritus or the organic matter into finer particles in order to increase the surface area so that they can be easily acted upon by the decomposers. And this happens when the detritus passes through the alimentary canal of the detritivores. Okay, then catabolism is done by the decomposers. They don't ingest, instead they will pour out the digestive enzymes, thereby degrading the organic matter of the detritus into inorganic. Okay, some of which they will absorb. Okay, so we'll just see that. I'll read to you fragmentation. So first, it is a breakdown of detritus into smaller particles. It is done by the detritivores, which feed on the detritus and cause their fragmentation when the detritus passes through their alimentary canal. This increases the surface area of the detritus so that they can be easily be acted upon by decomposers. I hope you have understood what is fragmentation. Next, leaching. Now, when this process is happening, what is happening is water can percolate through the soil. When water percolates through the soil, some of the soluble inorganic or organic nutrients from the fragmented detritus can move or percolate into the deeper parts of the soil and may be precipitated as unavailable salts. That means they may no longer be available to the plants. That is what is leaching. And the third process is catabolism. I've already told you about it. Catabolism is done by decomposers. During this process of catabolism, the extracellular enzymes released by bacteria and fungi carry out enzymatic conversion of the decomposing detritus to simpler compounds and inorganic substances. Now these three processes, these processes, that is fragmentation, leaching and catabolism, these are operating simultaneously on the detritus. It is not happening one after the other. These three processes are simultaneously happening on the detritus. Next two processes are humification and mineralization. Now this occurs during decomposition in the soil. Now what is humification? It is a process of formation of dark colored amorphous substance in the soil called humus. So the fragmentation, leaching and through catabolism, what is happening to the detritus is over the time it changes its form and becomes a dark colored substance, and that is what is called as humus. And this process of forming humus is what is called as humification. Now there are some features of this humus, characteristic features of humus. This time in the board the question was asked about describe or talk about the important features of the humus. Now what are the important features of the humus is they cannot be decomposed easily, okay, as they are highly resistant to microbial action. So they show very slow rate of decomposition because they are resistant to microbial action. Moreover, they are colloidal in nature and therefore they serve as a reservoir of nutrients. So it is a reservoir of nutrients. So this is an important characteristic feature of humus. Now over the time, the humus will slowly and gradually undergo further decomposition with the help of some other microbes, different types of microbes, and they will release minerals slowly and gradually into the soil from the humus, and that is what is referred to as mineralization. I hope you have understood. There are four steps involved. Sorry, not four. There are 5 steps that we have studied. Again, going back to it: fragmentation, leaching, catabolism. These are simultaneous processes occurring over the detritus. Then the next two processes being, so the numbering is wrong here, it should be 4 and 5. So it should be 4 and 5. So then followed by humification and mineralization. Now you can see a representation of decomposition cycle in a terrestrial ecosystem. So this figure is from your textbook and I want you to go through it. Each and every figure in your textbook is very important. Please go through it. Okay, so let us understand the decomposition cycle in a terrestrial ecosystem, and this picture also tells you the significance of decomposition also. Now here you can see a tree is growing. Okay, it has accumulated a lot of organic matter. How this has happened? It has happened through photosynthesis by absorbing light energy from the sun. So it's increased in biomass. Over the time, the leaves will begin. Some of the leaves, as they begin to mature, they will shed from the tree. That falls to the ground and it act as a detritus or the waste organic matter. If it remains here forever, what will happen? The nutrients which are enclosed in the organic matter of the leaf would be waste. Okay, it will be remaining locked here in its tissues. It has to be released. It has to be released into the soil so that the nutrients, the inorganic nutrients, again can be taken by the plants. So just understand, this is actually cycling of matter is taking place through decomposition. Okay, so the same carbon which was fixed over here is now coming back to the into the atmosphere, again going back to the plant again. The same way with all other nutrients. So here the leaf has fallen on the ground. What will happen to the leaf now? This leaf would be eaten by detritivores as well as the decomposers. They will make use of it. Why they will make use of it? This is their food. Okay, this is the source of food through which they will get energy. Okay, and by eating and by pouring the digestive enzymes, what are they also helping is, other than getting energy from this, they're also helping in getting rid of the detrital matter as well as unlocking the nutrients into the soil so that again it can be utilized by the plants. So here you can see worm. Now this is a worm. Likewise here there is the earthworm, and there is some fungi growing over here over the detritus. Okay, so what are they doing over here? Worms, through their activities, they are referred to as detritivores. They will be doing fragmentation, and the fungi over here is acting as a decomposer. Okay, is a decomposer, and it is involved in a process called catabolism. Okay, so in the meantime, this worm can be eaten by a sparrow, okay, or it may be eaten by a hen or a crow, and it may enter into the food web. the worm, okay, it may enter into the food. The energy contained in this plant matter from the worm, it may enter into the food web. Okay. Now, what will happen through these worm and the fungi doing, along with leaching also taking place, you can understand like this. This is through eating this, they are doing fragmentation, and by the action of fungi and bacteria, further catabolism or degradation of the leaf is taking place. Along with that, leaching is taking place. Some of the nutrients are percolating deep into the soil, and finally what happens is the soil becomes rich in nutrients. And from here, the nutrients which were locked in the leaf is now has reached into the soil through this activity called decomposition. Now from the soil, this will be gradually be absorbed by the plants to do photosynthesis, that is to again convert this inorganic matter into organic. And what is this called as? Conversion of inorganic matter to organic matter by plants during photosynthesis is referred to as productivity. So, which is again a very important process. So, decomposition, okay, helps also in a process called productivity. And so, you can, and I hope you have understood about the decomposition cycle in a terrestrial ecosystem. Now, let us talk about the factors that affect decomposition. What are the factors that affect decomposition? Okay, now rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus as well as the climatic factors. Chemical composition of detritus. If the detritus, now it depends upon the nature of the chemical nature of the detritus. If the detritus is rich in lignin, suppose if I talk about plants like if they're rich in lignin or if they're rich in chitin, the rate of decomposition is slower. Okay, suppose you know that the dead bodies of the animals, the bones, the nails, the hairs take a lot of time to decompose, whereas other softer parts decomposes very faster. So it depends upon the nature of the detritus. If it is rich in lignin and chitin, the rate of decomposition is lower. Whereas if the detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugar, the decomposition rate would be much higher. So one of the important factors that determines the rate of decomposition is the chemical nature of the detritus. Then next is climatic factors. Now how do climatic factors affect rate of decomposition? Remember, I've already told you that the living organisms are affected by the environmental conditions. We are also affected by environmental condition. Our efficiency, our energy level depends also upon the environmental conditions. Okay, so if the surrounding is very hot and very difficult for us to do any work, we will not be able to do a particular work easily. Okay, so likewise, there are certain factors or there are certain conditions, environmental conditions or climatic factors required by the decomposers as well as the detritivores to do decomposition or to do the process of decomposition. And those important factors are temperature, soil moisture, and availability of oxygen. So these are the very important factors that determine the decomposition, okay, through the effect on the activities of soil microbes. Okay, warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis, that is lack of oxygen or air, inhibit decomposition. So warm and moist environment is required for decomposition, whereas low temperature and lack of oxygen reduces the rate of decomposition. I hope you have understood about the very important function of the ecosystem called decomposition. Moving on to the next function of the ecosystem, that is energy flow. Now you can see here in this diagram, you can see the energy flow happening in the ecosystem. Now you can see the sun is the source of energy. In this diagram you can see the sun being the source of energy, and these arrows represents the flow of energy. Okay, and some energy is lost in the transferring as heat. Okay, I hope by this time you might have understood this is nothing but food chain. So in the ecosystem, it is through the food chain that the energy is flowing. Okay, so this is the plant. Now we call this as the producer, and these are referred to as the consumers because they directly or indirectly feed on the plant. So this one is referred as the primary consumer, the sparrow is referred to as the secondary consumer, and the last one is referred to as a tertiary consumer. Okay, and when they die, they are going to be, from them the energy would be taken by the detritivores and the decomposers. Okay, so this is just a diagrammatic representation of energy flow given in your textbook. Please go through this figure. Now let us understand in detail about this energy flow. What is the need of this energy in the ecosystem? Why energy is required? Now all organisms need energy. Every organism, in order to work, in order to survive, in order to grow, in order to develop, in order to maintain their cells and tissues, in order to do movement, breathing, all these requires energy. Taking a pen in my hand requires energy. Speaking to you requires energy. That means in order to do anything, in order to be living, we require, all organisms require energy. Okay. Also, it also is involved in all the metabolic activities inside a living system requires energy. And how do we get this energy? Okay, you know that we acquire this energy through food. So food is the source of energy for us. But first we need to understand how this food is prepared and who is the, now we are not preparing the food. Okay, the organism to prepare this food are the plants, and that is why they refer to as the producers, because they make this food. So by making this food, what is there happening is the food is storing the energy. Okay, and what is the source of energy? First of all, source of energy is the sun. For all the ecosystems on the earth, the source of energy is the sun. Okay, now except for deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem. Now over here I have given a picture of deep sea hydrothermal vents or ecosystem. Deep sea, when I say the word deep sea, you understand here the light do not penetrate. It is utterly dark over here. Okay, so there is no source of energy. The source of energy is not light over here, but there is chemical energy. Now first of all, let me tell you what are these hydrothermal vents, deep sea hydrothermal vents. These are actually fissures in the ocean or the sea floor through which the water seeps or percolates down and gets superheated and erupts up. Over the time and it erupts, this boiling water brings or dissolves along with it a lot of chemicals, and over the time what happens is these chemicals get deposited, giving the shape of a chimney. And you can see from this chimney what is happening is this boiling water along with chemicals are emanating out. So this is a source of chemical energy like hydrogen sulfide, which can be used by, not photosynthetic, there won't be any photosynthetic organism, but it will be used by chemosynthetic organisms, which in turn forms the source of energy or the source of food for the other organism to survive in the deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem. So except for this area, except for this ecosystem on the earth, all other ecosystems on the earth, the only source of energy is the sun. Now, of the incident, whatever energy or whatever solar radiation that falls on the earth or on the living organisms or the plants. Plants are the first one who make use of this energy. They have the ability to capture this energy, this light energy, because they have special pigments like chlorophylls, carotenoids, which has the ability to absorb specific wavelengths of light. Now they can't absorb all wavelengths of light. The wavelengths of light that they can absorb is from 400 to 700 nanometer, lies between that, and we call that wavelength of light or that portion as the photosynthetically active radiation or power. So it is said of the incident solar radiations, less than 50% of it is power. That is, less than 50% of the solar radiation is what the plant can utilize. But from that also plant captures only 2 to 10%, or we can say 1 to 5% of the incident radiation. And just imagine this small amount of energy sustains the entire living world. That is 1 to 5% of the energy of the sun sustains the living world. Okay. So now let us understand what is the green plant doing or what the plant's doing. The light energy of the sun is captured by the green plants. Now you know that the green plants are referred to as producers. You already know why they are referred to as producers, because they are producing. What are they producing? They are producing the organic matter from the inorganic nutrients. Okay? And so they capture this light energy and they convert it into chemical energy, into molecular bonds through a process known as photosynthesis. Let us understand this through this equation. I have written the equation of photosynthesis, 6CO2 plus 12 H2O in the presence of light and chlorophyll forms a molecule of sugar with the release of oxygen and water again. Now just imagine, see, something is being synthesized, okay, or you can say there is bond formation taking place. Bond formation has taken place. Bond formation, okay, requires energy, and this energy comes from light, okay. And why and how and what plant have in them to capture this light is the chlorophyll molecules or the pigment molecules they have. They absorb this light energy, they harness this light energy and use it for making, they convert it into chemical energy of these molecular bonds of the sugar or the food molecule. Okay, if you do the reverse of it, if you do the reverse of this equation, this would be referred to as respiration. What is happening in respiration is, you know, all living organisms respire. What is happening in respiration? The food that we have eaten is broken down to release energy. So this is what is happening. So the opposite of it is breaking of bonds. When the bonds break, whatever energy stored in these bonds, that is released. Okay, that energy is released and that is utilized, and that process what is referred to as cellular respiration, and that is utilized by the organisms for carrying out the metabolic activities and all other activities in order to grow, maintain and reproduce. I hope this is clear. So bond formation happens during photosynthesis, and that bond formation occurs through the energy from the sunlight, and once the food that they prepare, the food will be now be utilized by them in cellular respiration to release energy for carrying out their activities. This is how they grow and survive. Now, okay, other than plants, other organisms cannot trap this light energy. They cannot prepare or synthesize their own food. So what they do is they cannot capture this light energy. So instead what they do is they eat upon these, or they eat these producers, okay, in order to get the energy. And this is how energy flows into them. Okay, I have, there is a picture of a rabbit over here. So this is the plant, okay, this is a carrot over here. This carrot has got energy in its molecules, okay, in its biomolecules. The bonds in these biomolecules have a lot of energy stored, and where is this energy coming from? It has been coming from the sun. Okay, now since it cannot synthesize its own energy, it cannot trap the light energy of the sun, so how is it going to gain energy? From where it is going to gain energy from? What is it going to do is it is going to eat the food. Okay, so when it eats the food, when it ingests the food, what is happening? When we eat the food, what is happening to the food? Some of the food will be digested in our body, and the remaining will be released out as undigested waste. Okay, that much amount of energy is just passing out. The organic matter is released out because it's not been digested. The part that has been digested, it will become assimilated into a body. Assimilated means they will enter into our bloodstream, the digested food, and will enter to each and every cell and become new tissues and new molecules. Okay, and from that assimilated food also, some of that assimilated food would be utilized by the plant, by the rabbit in cellular respiration. Okay, to release energy, to grow, to reproduce, to maintain its metabolic activities. Okay, for all these, for jumping, for running, okay, for searching for food, for all this it requires energy. Now remember, during that cellular respiration, not all that energy would be obtained by the rabbit. Some amount of the energy would be lost to the environment in the form of heat. Because during cellular respiration, if you remember in class 11, we have learned about cellular respiration. What happens? When the bond breaks, when the bond breaks during cellular respiration, the whole of the energy is not converted as ATP to be utilized by that organism. Instead, only some amount of energy would be converted into ATP, and the remaining would be released as heat. Okay, so the same thing happens. Now this rabbit in turn will be eaten by another organism, and the same process happens. Okay, and this is how energy flows. I hope this is clear to you. So what is the requirement of energy? All organisms require energy to survive, to metabolize, okay, and to reproduce and grow and for their movement. Only plants has the ability to harness light energy and convert into the chemical energy of food, and other organisms, directly or indirectly, depend on them, and therefore they refer to as consumers. When they die, when these consumers and decomposers, when they die, the energy in them would be now utilized by the decomposers.